On a bright, sunny day, employees stream in and out of a bustling company building, each busy with their own routine, until one woman quietly steals everyone's attention. With her long, flowing hair and striking presence, she walks through the entrance, instantly drawing admiring glances from those nearby. Conversations pause. Heads turn. There's no doubt she stands out. A confident guy soon approaches her, clearly intrigued. He asks if she's new and casually introduces himself as someone from the acoustics department. Wasting no time, he tries his luck, inviting her to the company party with a flirtatious smile. But the woman doesn't even entertain the idea. Without hesitation, she lifts her hand, revealing a wedding ring. Calm and composed, she shuts him down, making it clear she's not interested. The guy freezes, completely caught off guard. Married? As he stands there processing his defeat, his friend steps in, half amused, half sympathetic. He casually reveals the truth. The woman he just tried to hit on is none other than Taiyou Fuyuki, the highly respected leader of the design team. The guy's expression instantly changes from confidence to shock. His friend continues, explaining that she's not just beautiful, she's incredibly skilled and well-known throughout the company. Then, with a curious tone, he adds that he never even knew she had a husband, and whoever that man is, he must be someone truly impressive. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the office, that very man is hard at work. Taiyou, the leader of the engineering team, sits at his desk, fully focused on his computer. A wedding ring glints subtly on his finger as he works through a newly assigned bug fix. Despite his usual efficiency, something seems to be distracting him today. And then, suddenly, Fuyuki appears behind him. Without warning, she presses herself against him in a playful, affectionate greeting. Clearly happy to see him, she doesn't hold back her excitement. But Taiyou's reaction is the complete opposite. He panics. His eyes dart around the office, terrified that someone might see them together. Instead of responding normally, he quickly types a message to her on his computer, urging her to be careful. For some reason, he's desperate to keep their relationship hidden. Fuyuki, however, doesn't seem too worried. She brushes it off, confidently saying there's no way they'll get caught. But the moment a coworker calls out to her for work, her entire demeanor shifts. Her playful side disappears instantly. Now she's all business. Calm, serious, professional. It's a complete transformation that shows just how dedicated she is to her role. And then, the truth behind their secrecy is revealed. In this company, relationships between employees are strictly forbidden.
Neither Taiyou nor Fuyuki knew about this rule when they first joined. It was only after they decided to get married and informed the company president that they learned about the restriction. The president questioned them directly, asking if they understood the policy. He explained that relationships could interfere with work and disrupt the company's environment. But since both of them were exceptionally talented and valuable to the company, he made a rare exception. They were allowed to stay on one condition. No one could ever find out about their relationship. Their marriage had to remain a complete secret. Back in the present, Fuyuki continues her work as usual, completely focused. When a colleague invites her out for lunch, she immediately declines, saying she doesn't have the time. Work always comes first. But things take a turn when she notices something that doesn't sit right with her. Across the office, Taiyou is talking to a female coworker. In an instant, her mood changes. Without hesitation, Fuyuki walks straight over and interrupts them. Her expression is calm, but there's a clear edge to it. She reminds Taiyou, in a firm and almost intimidating tone, that it's already time for lunch and that he should be taking proper breaks. The sudden intervention leaves everyone confused. One of Taiyou's team members can't help but whisper how strange it is for a leader from an entirely different department to step in like that. Taiyou himself is completely caught off guard. Shaken by her unexpected reaction, he quietly returns to his work, while Fuyuki walks away as if nothing happened. But beneath her composed exterior, her jealousy was impossible to hide.
Inside the meeting room, Taiyou Fuyuki rises from her seat, her expression calm and authoritative. With a composed voice, she announces that the design department meeting has officially come to an end. As chairs slide back and employees begin to leave, she maintains her professional demeanor until the very last moment. But the instant she steps out into the hallway, her expression softens ever so slightly. Without wasting time, she makes her way straight toward the engineering department, toward her husband. The moment she enters Taiyou's office, her entire attitude flips. Without warning, she presses herself against him from behind, playfully attacking him with affection as she praises him for his hard work. Her cheerful tone is a complete contrast to the strict leader everyone just saw in the meeting. Taiyou, however, instantly stiffens. Panic flashes across his face as he quickly scans the room, worried that someone might walk in at any second. But Fuyuki simply hugs him tighter, gently reassuring him that everyone has already left. There's no one around. Slowly, he relaxes. Letting out a small breath, Taiyou admits that he didn't even realize how much time had passed while working. Hearing that, Fuyuki smiles softly, encouraging him in a gentle voice to keep doing his best. It's a tone she would never use during office hours, a side of her that only he gets to see. Still focused on his responsibilities, Taiyou mentions that he'll need to work overtime tonight. He casually asks if it would be all right for him to prepare something simple for dinner later. But Fuyuki immediately shakes her head. She offers to take care of everything at home instead, cooking, cleaning, all of it. She explains that Taiyou already does so much, and besides, he actually enjoys doing housework. At least, that's what she tells herself. But deep down, there's another reason. If she finishes everything early, they might finally get some time to spend together. And lately, she's been missing that. Later that day, Fuyuki stops by the supermarket to pick up ingredients for dinner. Moving through the aisles with determination, she gathers everything she thinks she'll need. At the checkout, the cashier totals her items, 6,260 yen, and asks if she'd like a bag. Fuyuki calmly declines. Instead, she lifts up her own handbag, an expensive, elegant piece that looks completely out of place for carrying groceries. Without a second thought, she stuffs everything inside, ignoring the confused looks from the people around her. To her, it doesn't matter. Once she returns home, she immediately gets to work. Determined to do a good job, she searches up recipes online while juggling multiple tasks at once, cooking, cleaning, even doing the laundry. But despite her effort, it quickly becomes clear. This is not her area of expertise. One of her dresses shrinks in the dryer, becoming far too small to wear. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, things aren't going much better. The food burns, completely. By the time she realizes it, it's already too late. And right at that moment, Taiyou arrives home. The first thing he notices is the smell. Burnt. As he steps inside and sees the state of the kitchen, it doesn't take long for him to piece everything together. His eyes land on what used to be dinner, now sitting charred on the grill. Glancing at Fuyuki, he understands immediately. But instead of getting upset, he simply smiles. Calmly, he suggests an alternative. Since they both have a day off tomorrow, why not just go out for dinner instead? Fuyuki feels a wave of guilt wash over her. She wanted to do something nice for him and failed. But seeing how genuinely happy he looks at the idea of eating out, her mood slowly shifts. A small smile forms on her lips, her eyes softening in a way that carries a completely different kind of warmth. In a quiet voice, she agrees. They can go out to eat. But before that, maybe they can enjoy something at home first. Taiyou doesn't need any more convincing. The two of them quickly abandon the idea of dinner altogether, getting lost in their own little world instead. Away from the eyes of others, they finally act like a normal couple, laughing, teasing, and enjoying each other's presence. That night, they spend so much time together that everything else fades away. And the next morning, they oversleep. Another beautiful morning begins in the apartment shared by Taiyou and Tojo Fuyuki. At exactly 6:30 a.m., the sound of an alarm cuts through the quiet room. Half asleep, Taiyou reaches out to turn it off, barely opening his eyes. Before he can fully wake up, he feels movement beside him. Fuyuki rolls closer, pressing herself gently against him. With a soft smile, she greets him with a warm "good morning," her voice still laced with sleep. Taiyou, still groggy, immediately worries about her catching a cold and tells her to cover herself properly. But Fuyuki has other ideas. She leans in even closer, whispering that if they stay like this, neither of them will feel cold. Before he can react, she pulls him in, burying his face against her in a way that instantly makes him panic.
Flustered, Taiyou tries to pull away, reminding her that they'll be late for work if they keep this up. His reaction clearly disappoints her, but she doesn't push further, at least not for now. Soon after, Fuyuki moves on to her morning routine. She carefully gets ready, paying close attention to every detail of her appearance. Standing in front of the mirror, she examines herself, and it's obvious that her beauty is on another level. Then, suddenly, she calls out to Taiyou in a loud, urgent tone, claiming something terrible has happened. Startled, Taiyou rushes over immediately, only to find her completely fine. Fuyuki can't help but tease him. With a playful smile, she declares that the problem is simply that she's too beautiful. Stepping closer, she looks up at him with soft, expectant eyes and asks if he doesn't agree. Taiyou instantly senses danger. He knows that if he responds honestly, things might escalate in a direction he's not ready for, especially this early in the morning. So instead, he quickly changes the subject, asking if she's wearing a different perfume. Fuyuki nods. Curious, Taiyou leans in slightly and takes a gentle sniff near her neck, admitting that he likes the scent. That one small action is enough. Fuyuki's entire expression changes as she gets flustered, a slight shiver running through her. Trying to compose herself, she quietly mutters, "It's a good thing I woke up early today."
Back at the company building, Fuyuki arrives while distracted, her attention focused on her phone. As she steps inside, a handsome coworker greets her with a bright "good morning." Just like before, she barely acknowledges him. Still, the man doesn't give up and compliments her perfume, coincidentally saying the exact same thing Taiyou did earlier. Fuyuki's response is immediate and cold. She states clearly that she only wore the perfume for her husband and that he's the only one allowed to enjoy it. The man is left speechless. It's obvious he has feelings for her, and hearing that only makes the jealousy inside him grow stronger. Meanwhile, in another part of the office, Taiyou struggles to stay awake at his desk, completely unaware of just how fortunate he actually is. Later on, while heading up a staircase, Taiyou finds himself walking behind two younger girls in school uniforms. At the same time, he's busy texting Fuyuki, completely absorbed in the conversation. He doesn't notice anything around him, not even the girls in front of him. But one of them notices him. Catching a glimpse of his phone, she suddenly turns around and accuses him of taking pictures of them. The accusation comes out of nowhere, leaving Taiyou completely stunned. He immediately denies it, confused and trying to explain himself, but the girl doesn't back down. She insists that she saw him, her voice growing louder as she questions his intentions. Without hesitation, she begins to insult him, accusing him of being a desperate creep who would stoop so low as to take pictures of schoolgirls. The situation escalates quickly, and Taiyou finds himself in serious trouble over something he didn't even do. Just as the situation begins to spiral out of control, an older man steps in, his voice firm as he asks what's going on. One of the students immediately points at Taiyou and explains everything, accusing him of secretly taking pictures. Taiyou is left speechless. But before things can get any worse, Tojo Fuyuki arrives. Without hesitation, she walks straight up to him and clings tightly to his arm, her presence instantly shifting the atmosphere. With a sharp, possessive tone, she demands to know what they think they're doing with her husband. Taiyou freezes. He can't believe what he's hearing or what's happening. The two girls are caught completely off guard. One of them can't help but stare at Fuyuki, clearly stunned by her beauty, and hesitantly asks if she's really his wife. Fuyuki doesn't hesitate for even a second. She confirms it, her gaze cold, almost intimidating, as she repeats her question, making it very clear that she won't tolerate any accusations toward her man. The pressure is too much. The girls quickly back down, nervously apologizing and claiming it must have all been a misunderstanding before rushing away. Even the older man, watching the scene unfold, silently comes to his own conclusion. A man with a wife like that wouldn't need to do something so pathetic. Just like that, the situation is resolved. Later, back at home, Taiyou finally lets out a sigh of relief. Grateful, he thanks Fuyuki for stepping in and saving him. But instead of responding warmly, she seems distant. Something feels off. Without explaining anything, she simply tells him to wait for her in the bedroom. Confused but obedient, Taiyou does as he's told. Moments later, the door opens, and what he sees leaves him completely stunned. Fuyuki walks in wearing her old high school uniform. It's clearly not meant for her anymore. The blouse is stretched tight, the buttons barely holding, and the skirt is much shorter than it should be. It's obvious that time has changed things, but instead of being embarrassed, she confidently shows herself off. With a teasing smile, she asks if she still looks good in it. Taiyou, sitting on the bed, is caught between shock and nostalgia. He admits that the outfit brings back memories, but can't help asking why she's suddenly doing this. Fuyuki slowly approaches him. Climbing onto his lap, she leans in close, her voice softer now, but filled with intent. She admits the truth. She doesn't want to lose to someone younger. The earlier incident clearly left an impression on her. Determined not to be outdone, she pushes forward, gradually closing the distance between them. Guiding his hand toward her, she encourages him, wanting reassurance in the only way she knows how. Her confidence only grows as she sees his reaction, teasing him further and suggesting they can take things even further. This time, Taiyou doesn't resist. But just as the mood deepens, Fuyuki suddenly remembers something. With a playful tone, she offers to let him take pictures of her if he wants. That instantly breaks the moment. Taiyou pulls back slightly, clearly offended, saying he's not into that kind of thing. Fuyuki laughs it off, half joking that it's a shame he isn't. Even so, the tension between them doesn't disappear. If anything, it only shifts. Meanwhile, on a random afternoon in the city, two stylish young men walk side by side, casually chatting as they pass by different people. One of them suddenly points out a blonde woman nearby, commenting on how beautiful she is. That woman is Fuyuki. Standing there, completely absorbed in her phone, she doesn't even notice the attention she's drawing. The other guy adds that it's not just her looks, there's something about her that naturally catches people's eyes. But Fuyuki remains unfazed. Her focus is elsewhere. On her screen, a message from Taiyou appears. He tells her that he'll be arriving soon to meet her. The two stylish young men, still eyeing Tojo Fuyuki from a distance, decide to get bold. Trying to grab her attention, they casually call out to her, "Auntie." That does it. Fuyuki slowly lifts her gaze from her phone, clearly unimpressed. The guys approach with confident smiles, inviting her out for tea as if it's the most natural thing in the world, openly flirting despite the obvious age gap. Fuyuki calmly responds that she's already waiting for someone. And right on cue, Haru Taiyou comes running into view. Slightly out of breath, he apologizes for being late. The moment Fuyuki sees him, her entire expression softens, her happiness obvious. But the moment is immediately ruined. The two young men burst into laughter. They look Taiyou up and down, mocking him without restraint, asking if this loser is really the person she was waiting for. One of them even jokes that it's hilarious to imagine the two of them together, adding that they don't match at all. Taiyou, caught off guard, awkwardly admits that he can't really argue with that. That only encourages them more. They turn back to Fuyuki, asking if she isn't embarrassed to be seen walking around with someone like him. Their tone is mocking, dismissive, and completely lacking respect. And that's where Fuyuki draws the line. Her expression sharpens. Without hesitation, she defends her husband, saying that yes, he may look plain, maybe even overly neat, but that's exactly what makes him so cool. The boys laugh again, unable to take her seriously. One of them asks if she's joking, or if she genuinely doesn't care about a man's appearance. Fuyuki's patience runs out. Her aura changes instantly. With a cold, cutting tone, she fires back, saying that if they think wearing trendy clothes makes them cool, then there must be something seriously wrong with them. The shift is so sudden, it shakes them. The one who had been mocking Taiyou the most gets visibly irritated, asking what her problem is. Fuyuki doesn't hesitate. She bluntly tells him that if anything, she'd be the one embarrassed to be seen walking around with them. That hits a nerve. Taiyou quickly steps in, trying to calm things down, saying there's no need to get worked up over something like this. But the situation has already escalated too far. One of the boys, now angry, steps forward and threatens Fuyuki, saying she needs to learn how to control her mouth. That's when Taiyou moves. In one swift motion, he grabs the boy's wrist before he can even get close. His usual timid demeanor disappears, replaced by a firm, unshakable presence. With a faint but intimidating smile, Taiyou tells him one thing: don't touch his wife. And just in case there was any confusion, he makes it crystal clear that he is Fuyuki's husband. The confidence in his voice is enough. The boy freezes. Fear replaces his arrogance almost instantly. Without another word, he backs off and runs away with his friends, both of them shaken by the sudden shift. Watching them leave, Taiyou casually mentions that it's a good thing he learned self-defense. Then, as if nothing happened, he turns to Fuyuki and gently offers his hand, inviting her to move on. Fuyuki smiles and takes it. Later that same day, the couple stands together on a crowded train platform. The atmosphere is lively, people moving in every direction as they wait. Fuyuki comments that sometimes it's nice to leave the house and go on a simple train date like this. Just then, their train arrives, and it's completely packed. The two exchange surprised looks, assuming there must be some kind of event happening in a nearby city. Still, they board. Inside, the space is tight, forcing them to stand close together. For Fuyuki, this isn't a problem at all. In fact, she seems to enjoy it. Taiyou apologizes for not taking the car instead, but she quickly brushes it off. With a small smile, she points out that thanks to the crowded train, they get to stay close to each other even in public. To her, that's a win. As the train begins to move, the gentle swaying starts to take its toll on Taiyou. Already tired from work, he slowly begins to doze off. His head dips forward, and before he realizes it, he ends up leaning directly against Fuyuki, right into her chest. The moment he regains awareness, he panics, quickly pulling back and apologizing over and over. But Fuyuki doesn't seem bothered in the slightest. Instead, she gently strokes his hair, smiling softly as she reassures him. She thanks him for always working so hard, especially so they could spend time together like this. Her hand moves to his face, caressing it gently as she admits she's had a really great day. Noticing how tired he still is, she offers him a place to rest, suggesting he use her as a pillow. Of course, Taiyou immediately refuses, flustered as ever. On a peaceful afternoon, families fill the city aquarium, children running around while adults admire the sea life. Among the crowd, Haru Taiyou and Tojo Fuyuki blend in like any ordinary couple, enjoying a rare moment together outside of work. Fuyuki is clearly having the time of her life. She moves from tank to tank, her eyes sparkling as she watches colorful fish glide through the water. At one point, she leans closer to the glass, pressing against it excitedly as she calls Taiyou over to see the amazing wonders of nature. Taiyou can't help but laugh. To him, she looks just like a child. That comment instantly earns him a reaction. Fuyuki puffs up in annoyance, arguing back, but Taiyou quickly clarifies that he didn't mean it in a bad way. If anything, he just thinks she looks cute. That calms her down. Smiling again, she pulls out her phone and drags her shy husband closer, trying to take a photo together. But just as she's about to snap the picture, she freezes. Something is very wrong. Her gaze locks onto someone in the distance. Taiyou follows her line of sight and immediately recognizes the problem. Tanaka, Fuyuki's coworker, the same guy who once tried to flirt with her. And to make things worse, he's not alone. If he finds out they're together, it could expose everything. Taiyou immediately suggests they leave before they're noticed. But Fuyuki shakes her head without hesitation. She doesn't want to ruin their date over something like this. There are too many people around, she insists. They'll be fine. Taiyou, however, isn't nearly as confident. Trying to act normal, Fuyuki decides they should go watch the dolphin show. The two make their way to the crowded bleachers, squeezing into their seats among the audience. But Taiyou's uneasiness doesn't fade. In fact, it only gets worse. Before he can even suggest leaving again, they're approached. Tanaka stands right in front of them, casually asking what they're doing there. Taiyou's heart practically stops. As Tanaka's questions start to get more pointed, the tension rises. He begins to wonder if the two of them are together, putting Taiyou on edge. But Fuyuki steps in instantly. Without missing a beat, she explains that they're here for work, gathering reference material for a project. Since they're both team leaders, it makes sense they came together. Her answer is smooth, convincing, almost too convincing. To make things worse, Tanaka casually adds that there's no way the two of them could be dating anyway. Taiyou forces a nervous smile. Meanwhile, Tanaka explains that he's on a date himself, gesturing to the woman beside him. He mentions they'd just met, though she looks completely uninterested. And then, splash! A dolphin leaps from the water, sending a wave crashing toward the audience. Fuyuki takes the full hit. She's completely drenched. Water clings to her blouse, making it clear just how soaked she is. Startled, Taiyou instinctively turns toward her, almost calling her by her first name in front of everyone. He catches himself just in time. Fuyuki, however, doesn't even notice. She's too busy reacting to the cold splash and the state of her clothes. As water trickles down, she complains about her light-colored blouse being completely ruined. But Taiyou notices something else, Tanaka's gaze, and it immediately irritates him. Without saying anything, Taiyou quickly hands Fuyuki a handkerchief, telling her to dry off and cover herself since people are starting to look. Fuyuki accepts it gratefully, focusing on cleaning herself up. But Tanaka's lingering glance doesn't go unnoticed. Later, as the day comes to an end and the couple heads home, Taiyou finally lets out a deep sigh of relief. Somehow, they manage to avoid being exposed. Just when he starts to relax, Fuyuki suddenly jumps onto his back. Caught off guard, he stumbles slightly as she wraps her arms around him. With a playful tone, she teases him, asking if he was jealous of Tanaka earlier. Taiyou immediately gets flustered. He tries to deny it, but his hesitation gives him away. Eventually, he admits the truth. He was jealous. Fuyuki can't help but laugh, saying it's incredibly easy to read him. Embarrassed, Taiyou asks what's so funny, only for her to respond with a bright smile. She just thinks her husband is really cute. Then, as if nothing happened, she casually mentions that after visiting the aquarium, she's suddenly craving fish. Taiyou is left speechless. But as the two continue walking together unawares, someone else is watching. From a distance, a mysterious figure stands still. A woman with short hair and a cross-shaped earring quietly observes them. She doesn't approach, she doesn't speak, but the way she watches Fuyuki, it's clear she knows her. A fresh, sunny morning begins at the apartment building where Haru Taiyou and Tojo Fuyuki live. Taiyou is already preparing to leave, adjusting his things as he explains that he has to head to the office early. There's simply too much work waiting for him. But before he can step out, he's interrupted. Fuyuki appears behind him, still dressed in nothing but an oversized button-up shirt. The sight alone is enough to make him flustered, and he quickly tells her to go get properly dressed. But she doesn't move. Instead, she stops him. With a soft, almost expectant gaze, she asks if he isn't forgetting something important. Slowly stepping closer, she reminds him this is the only time they can act like a normal couple. At work, they have to pretend like they're strangers. So right now, she wants a goodbye kiss. Taiyou hesitates. For a moment, he looks conflicted, but then he gives in. He steps forward and gently kisses her. On the cheek. That's it. Fuyuki immediately questions him, clearly dissatisfied. Why only the cheek? Embarrassed, Taiyou explains the truth. If he kissed her on the lips, he wouldn't be able to stop himself. With that, he quickly turns and leaves, closing the apartment door behind him. And just like that, Fuyuki collapses onto the floor. Her face turns bright red as she hugs her knees, overwhelmed by a mix of emotions. Frustration, embarrassment, longing, it all hits at once. She can't help but feel annoyed, both at the way Taiyou left her like that and at the unfair situation they're forced to live in. Meanwhile, Taiyou walks down the sidewalk on his way to work, trying to clear his mind. That's when he notices something off. A drunk man in a cap is bothering a short-haired woman nearby, trying to pressure her into going out with him. She looks vaguely familiar, but Taiyou can't quite place it. The man keeps insisting, saying he doesn't want to drink alone and just wants to have some fun. But the woman clearly isn't interested. She just wants to smoke in peace. Calmly but firmly, she tells him to go bother someone else. But he doesn't listen. Instead, he grabs her wrist, insisting that since they're both single, they might as well be together. That's when Taiyou steps in. Without hesitation, he moves closer and intervenes, helping the woman pull free from the man's grip. The situation de-escalates quickly, the drunk man backing off with visible irritation. As things settle, the short-haired woman looks at Taiyou more closely. And then, she remembers. She's seen him before, with Fuyuki. The image becomes clear in her mind. Two people walking together, their hands brushing, the subtle closeness between them. She had wondered back then if they were a couple. Now, she knows. Thinking quickly, she tells the drunk man that Taiyou is her husband. That's enough. The man clicks his tongue in annoyance, but finally leaves them alone. Once he's gone, the woman turns back to Taiyou and thanks him sincerely. She explains that she was just on her way to work when she got stopped like that. Taiyou downplays it, saying he didn't really do much. But she disagrees. She points out that everyone else nearby pretended not to see anything. He was the only one who stepped in. Looking at him with a softer, more deliberate gaze, she tells him he was kind. The way she says it makes Taiyou visibly uncomfortable. Trying to move past it, they end up realizing something surprising. They both work at the same company. The woman reaches into her bag and pulls out her ID badge, introducing herself as Hokuho Akin, a writer from the script team. Taiyou is stunned. He immediately recognizes the name. Her scripts are incredibly popular within the company, practically masterpieces that bring major attention to their projects. Honestly, she doesn't look like what he expected. Akin casually explains that they've never met because she usually works remotely. Taiyou then shows his own badge, introducing himself in return. For a brief moment, Akin goes quiet, clearly thinking about something. Then, without saying much more, she leaves. Not long after, Taiyou walks through a quiet office corridor, unaware that things are about to get even more complicated. From behind a glass door, Fuyuki suddenly calls out to him in a whisper. Before he can react, she pulls him inside the hidden space, closing the door behind them. With a mischievous smile, she assures him that no one will see them here. Taiyou, once again, is completely thrown off. "What is this about?" he asks. Fuyuki doesn't answer directly. Instead, she leans in and plants a kiss on his cheek. Her eyes sparkle with playful satisfaction as she tells him it's revenge for what he did earlier that morning. Inside their little hiding spot, she quietly adds that they can continue this later, at home. Taiyou, flustered but smiling, agrees. But outside, someone saw everything. Hokuho Akin walks down the corridor at that exact moment, her eyes catching the scene just before the door closes. She stops, listens, and as she pieces everything together, a subtle smile forms on her lips. With a quiet, almost dangerous tone, she mutters to herself, "What she just discovered is very interesting." Another workday begins inside the company, and Tojo Fuyuki walks confidently through the corridors, her usual composed aura surrounding her. As she passes by the smoking area, something catches her eye. A familiar face. Hokuho Akine stands there, casually smoking. The brunette notices her too and greets her calmly, mentioning that it's been a while since they last saw each other. Fuyuki agrees, pointing out how rare it is to actually see Akine at the office. Akine explains that she came in person this time to give a presentation. Curious, Fuyuki tries to recall the last time they met. Akine reminds her it was during the release of GalQuest. She casually adds that she was only able to complete that project thanks to Fuyuki's help. Fuyuki responds with a light smile, mentioning how Akine used her as a reference model multiple times back then. When Fuyuki realizes it's already been 2 years since that project, the atmosphere suddenly shifts. Akine's expression changes. With a subtle but unmistakable edge, she begins asking questions, starting with whether Fuyuki got married during that time. Fuyuki hesitates, but confirms it. That's all Akine needs. She immediately asks who the husband is. Fuyuki, clearly trying to avoid the topic, quickly responds that it's someone unrelated to the company. Her tone is calm, but the tension between them becomes obvious. Trying to escape the direction of the conversation, Fuyuki shifts the topic and asks about Akine's next game project. Akine plays along, for now. She explains that the original idea was supposed to be an isekai concept, but she decided to change it after coming up with something better. Then she reveals it. The new theme is a secret office romance. The moment those words leave her mouth, Fuyuki regrets asking. The timing feels too perfect, too intentional. Trying to mask her discomfort, Fuyuki questions whether changing the concept this late might cause problems, but Akine simply looks at her, almost amused, and asks what kind of person she thinks she is. The answer is clear. Akine does whatever she wants. At that same moment, Haru Taiyou walks down the corridor and spots the two of them talking. From a distance, it looks like a normal conversation, even friendly. He has no idea how tense it actually is. Still,
Seeing Akane there makes him uneasy. He reminds himself that he needs to be extra careful. If she finds out about his relationship with Fuyuki, things could get complicated fast. But then, Fuyuki does something completely unexpected. She blows him a kiss. Right there in the hallway. Taiyou nearly short-circuits on the spot. His face turns red instantly and he struggles to keep his composure. A nearby coworker even asks if he's feeling okay. Meanwhile, Fuyuki continues on like nothing happened. Later that night, back at home, Fuyuki returns in high spirits. Taiyou, on the other hand, sits stiffly on the couch, clearly nervous. The moment their eyes meet, both of them become awkward, the atmosphere instantly charged. Tonight is different. Tonight, they plan to take things further. Trying to break the tension, Taiyou calls Fuyuki over to sit beside him. She eagerly accepts, moving close without hesitation. Fuyuki leans in, her soft gaze fixed on him as she gently asks if he wants to continue where they left off. Taiyou nods. Slowly, he guides her down onto the couch. His heart races as he looks at her. Beautiful, expectant, waiting. He leans in closer. Closer. And then, he kisses her forehead. Fuyuki freezes. Her face instantly turns red as she softly calls his name, clearly not satisfied. Teasing him, she points out that it's supposed to be a kiss on the lips. Taiyou awkwardly tries to recover, blurting out that she just looks really cute. But before things can progress further, Fuyuki suddenly pauses. She leans back slightly and smells her own neck. Confused, she asks if she smells bad. Taiyou quickly denies it, but she still seems unsure. After a moment of thought, she decides she'll take a bath first. And just like that, the moment is gone. Taiyou watches as she walks away, already realizing he's going to have to wait even longer. Just as the tension lingers in the air, the bathroom door slowly opens. Tojo Fuyuki peeks out, her expression filled with playful mischief and unmistakable seduction. In a soft, inviting tone, she asks Taioharu if he wants to shower with her. That alone is enough to send his heart racing. Moments later, Taiyou finds himself already under the running water, nervously waiting. He admits to himself that they've always bathed separately, so this situation feels completely unfamiliar. And overwhelming. Then, the door opens again. Fuyuki steps in, completely naked. Without the slightest hesitation, she casually announces that she's coming in. Taiyou immediately turns his head away, flustered beyond belief. Despite being married, he has no idea where to look. Panicking, he quickly stands up to give her space where he was leaning. But Fuyuki doesn't even need it. She calmly grabs the shampoo instead, saying she'll wash his hair. As her fingers begin gently massaging his scalp, Taiyou slowly starts to relax. The tension fades, replaced by a soothing warmth. Meanwhile, Fuyuki seems to be enjoying herself just as much. She asks if it tickles. Taiyou admits it actually feels like he's at a salon. Trying to return the favor, he offers to wash her hair too, but she declines, explaining that her long hair takes too much effort. Instead, she suggests doing something more interesting. Before he can fully process what she means, they shift positions. Now, Taiyou is holding a sponge, and suddenly realizes he's scrubbing her back. His mind starts racing, thinking about how detailed her daily routine must be, how long it probably takes. It finally makes sense why they usually bathe separately. But Fuyuki isn't done. She casually asks why he doesn't wash the front too. Taiyou freezes for a split second, then somehow agrees. Carefully, nervously, he applies soap, trying his best to stay composed. As his hands move, Fuyuki's body reacts subtly, her tension shifting into something else entirely. But Taiyou doesn't notice. Instead, he suddenly pulls away, apologizing, worried that he did something wrong. Fuyuki reassures him that it's fine, but he still seems unsure. Trying to comfort him, she gently praises his technique. Then, the roles reverse. Now, it's Fuyuki washing Taiyou's back. He gets momentarily confused, wondering if he should be the one doing it, before remembering something important. Fuyuki is taller than him. But that's not what truly distracts him. It's the fact that she's pressing herself against his back. Completely. Taiyou's mind goes blank. He has no idea how to handle the situation. Meanwhile, Fuyuki leans in closer, noticing something. They're using the same soap. That means he smells the same as always. Taiyou nervously asks if that's a bad thing. Fuyuki softly shakes her head. No. In fact, she likes it. She admits that his scent is comforting, relaxing even. It makes her feel at ease. Then, her tone softens. She quietly complains about how work keeps them apart, how little time they actually get to spend like this. The warm steam, the quiet space, the closeness, it all starts to affect her. Slowly, her body relaxes too much. She begins to drift. Taiyou notices immediately. Concerned, he tells her she'll catch a cold if she falls asleep here. It hits him then. She's been exhausted lately, really exhausted. So this time, he takes the initiative. Turning around to face her, he gently pulls her closer and finally, without hesitation, kisses her on the lips, a moment they've been building toward all day.
Back at the company, the atmosphere couldn't be more different. Inside a meeting room, Hokuho Akine suddenly slams a stack of papers onto the table, her frustration boiling over. She firmly declares that there's no way things can continue like this. The room falls silent. Her superior looks at her, slightly taken aback, asking if she's seriously objecting to cutting the final scene of the game just to reduce costs. Akine doesn't back down. She insists that the heart of her work lies in telling a complete story, one that keeps people engaged until the very end. But her superior counters calmly. He understands her passion, but from a business perspective, shorter and simpler stories sell better. According to him, all they really need is something flashy to grab attention. That's enough. Fuyuki, who has been listening quietly, suddenly stands up, ready to defend Akine. But before she can say anything, Akine stops her. With a composed expression, she stands and contradicts even her own argument, saying that maybe it really doesn't matter. After all, if players are just going to skip the story anyway, what's the point of writing something long? Her tone is calm, too calm. Without another word, she turns and walks out of the room, leaving everything behind, including Fuyuki, who can only watch as the situation grows more complicated than ever. The next morning arrives, and Hokuho Akine walks down the street on her way to work. Her steps are slower than usual, her expression tired as she lets out a quiet yawn. She hasn't been sleeping well. So much so that she doesn't even notice the danger right in front of her. A car speeds toward her, and just before it's too late, Haru Taiyou grabs her, pulling her back in time. The car rushes past them, the driver clearly irritated as he disappears down the road. Taiyou, still holding her, quickly asks if she's okay. Akine nods, still processing what just happened. But then, Taiyou realizes something. He's holding her by the waist. And not just that, her body is pressed directly against his. Flustered, he immediately lets go and steps back, apologizing over and over. Akine watches him for a moment, then casually comments that despite how he looks, he's not very good at talking. Taiyou quickly tries to defend himself, but she suddenly smiles, admitting she was just joking. Then, more sincerely, she thanks him for saving her. As the moment settles, Taiyou notices something off about her. She still looks distracted. So he asks if everything's okay. Akine hesitates, but then opens up slightly. She explains that she hasn't been sleeping because of the new project. When Taiyou asks if something happened at work, she admits it's more than just that. Her thoughts drift back to the argument with her superior, to the idea that long, meaningful stories don't matter. And before she can stop herself, she lets it slip. She's starting to question whether her work is actually good. The moment those words leave her mouth, she realizes she's said too much. But Taiyou doesn't hesitate. He reassures her immediately. He tells her that her work is genuinely amazing, well-written, engaging, something that people can truly enjoy. He even goes on to talk about the new game direction, mentioning that while isekai-style stories are often exaggerated and simple, he believes she can give it real depth, something meaningful, something only she can create. And he's looking forward to it. Akine listens quietly, a cigarette resting between her fingers as she processes every word. Meanwhile, Taiyou suddenly becomes self-conscious, apologizing for talking too much and admitting he's just a big fan of her work. Akine turns her face away slightly, hiding her expression. Because in truth, what he said made her really happy. In the background, Taiyou starts panicking, worried that he might have offended her somehow. After a brief silence, Akine reflects on what it means to create a well-balanced story. Then, with a faint smile, she says something unexpected. Maybe she'll end up creating a masterpiece because of him. Taiyou looks at her surprised, then notices something small. Her cigarette isn't lit. When he points it out, Akine casually reveals the truth. It's not a real cigarette, just candy.
Later that day at the company, Taiyou is deep in thought when his focus is suddenly broken. Akine stands in front of him. She asks for his opinion on the news story. Taiyou, as honest as ever, tells her she can do whatever she wants. He trusts her completely. Akine thanks him, explaining that she's been struggling with direction. But they're not alone. In the background, Tojo Fuyuki passes by, and she sees everything. The way they're talking, the ease between them. She doesn't like it. Not one bit. That night back at the apartment, the atmosphere feels different. Taiyou sits at his computer, completely focused, unaware that he's being watched. Fuyuki stands nearby, silent. Then, finally, she speaks, asking for a moment of his time. Taiyou turns, confused, and immediately notices something's wrong. Her eyes are teary, her expression hurt. She tells him everything. She's seen him talking to Akine at work, she's noticed how often they interact, she even saw them walking together in the morning. Taiyou is caught off guard. He quickly explains that it's nothing like that, he's just a fan of Akine's work and wanted to help her. As for the walks, it's just coincidence. But Fuyuki isn't convinced. Her voice trembles as she admits the real reason she's upset. It's not fair. She wants to talk to him at work too, but she can't. They're forced to act like strangers, while he can casually interact with someone else. That's what hurts. Taiyou goes silent. Then, without another word, he turns off his computer. Slowly, he walks up to her. Gently, he wipes away her tears. In a soft voice, he reassures her. No matter what happens outside, he'll always cherish the time they spend together at home. That's what matters most. Fuyuki's expression changes instantly. Her sadness melts away as she throws her arms around him, hugging him tightly. She tells him she loves him, her voice full of warmth again. Taiyou holds her close. But deep down, he realizes something important. If he wants to keep things peaceful, he'll have to start keeping his distance from Hokuho Akine.
The next day at the office, Haru Taiyou stretches in his chair, preparing to head out for lunch. Just as he's about to leave, Hakuho Akine appears. Calm as ever, she casually invites him to have lunch with her, but Taiyou, already on edge, quickly makes up an excuse, saying he brought food from home. Akine doesn't push it and simply accepts his answer, or at least, for now. Later, she approaches him again, this time suggesting they check out a place she mentioned before. The moment Taiyou hears that, panic kicks in. Without even thinking, he rushes past her in the hallway, pretending he didn't see her at all. That's the breaking point. Clearly unhappy, Akine decides she's not letting this slide. A little while later, Taiyou steps into an elevator, completely unaware of what's about to happen. Then, Akine walks in right behind him. Before he can react, she steps closer, rising slightly on her toes as she places her hand against the wall, effectively trapping him in place. Her expression isn't playful this time, it's serious. She asks him directly, did she do something wrong? Why is he avoiding her? The proximity alone is enough to send Taiyou into full panic mode. His brain nearly shuts down as she repeats the question, waiting for a real answer. Finally, he cracks. Nervously, he explains the truth. His wife is jealous. For a moment, there's silence. Then, Akine bursts into laughter. She can't believe it. Still amused, she asks if that's really the reason, even teasing him about whether his wife is actually jealous of her. Taiyou, embarrassed, apologizes, admitting he didn't know how to explain things properly. Akine watches him for a second, then her expression shifts again. She asks if she can request a favor. Taiyou, still trying to make up for everything, says he'll do anything within reason. That's when she leans in closer and drops it. She wants him to come to her house that night. By the end of the workday, Tojo Fuyuki is still in the office, finishing up designs on her tablet. As she wraps things up, she notices Taiyou leaving. Naturally, she decides it's time for her to go too. But just as she's about to step out, something catches her attention. Akine, standing with Taiyou. Fuyuki watches as the two talk casually. Akine suggests they leave together, even asking what he wants for dinner. She casually mentions stopping by the supermarket, and that's when it hits Fuyuki. Her husband is going to Akine's house. Her mind starts racing. She didn't know anything about this. Why didn't he tell her? Panic sets in almost instantly. Is he cheating?
Later that night, inside Akine's apartment, a beautifully prepared dinner is laid out on the table. Taiyou looks genuinely impressed, complimenting the food as he blushes slightly from the situation. Akine notices immediately, teasing him about it. Then suddenly her phone rings. She excuses herself to take the call, leaving Taiyou alone in the room. For a brief moment, everything is quiet. Too quiet. Then, a strange noise.
Confused, Taiyou looks around, and what he sees nearly gives him a heart attack. Pressed up against the apartment window from the outside is Fuyuki, looking completely unhinged. Taiyou lets out a scream loud enough to wake the entire neighborhood. Before he can process anything, Fuyuki bursts in and jumps on top of him, clinging tightly. He's completely lost, trying to figure out what she's even doing there. But there's no time to talk, because Akane is already coming back. Thinking fast, Fuyuki grabs Taiyou and pulls him into a nearby closet, slamming it shut behind them. Inside the cramped space, Taiyou whispers urgently, asking what's going on. Fuyuki, however, just holds onto him even tighter. Her mind is racing. If they're found like this, everything is over. Their marriage, their secret, everything. And then it hits her. She just broke into someone else's house. But there's no time to think about that. She has questions, a lot of questions. But before she can even start, something else happens. Taiyou, completely unaware of the situation, accidentally presses against her in the tight space, making her flustered. Her face turns bright red as her thoughts spiral in a completely different direction. She even starts misreading the situation, thinking he's trying to get intimate. Meanwhile, Taiyou is barely able to breathe. Just as Fuyuki starts to realize that this is absolutely not the place for anything like that, the closet door swings open. Akane stands there and finds them. The two women lock eyes. Silence fills the room. Fuyuki is completely speechless. Taiyou, somehow still alive, struggles to process what just happened. Then, suddenly, Akane slaps the table, once, twice, and then she bursts into laughter, loud, uncontrollable laughter, while Fuyuki remains frozen in shock, and Taiyou, in the background, finally manages to breathe again. As Hokuho Akine's laughter finally begins to settle, Tojo Fuyuki crosses her arms, clearly not amused. She asks, bluntly, if the joke is over. Still trying to regain control of the situation, Fuyuki declares that it's fine, but next time, she won't bother hiding. Then, with a sharp tone, she makes one thing very clear. Haru Taiyou is her husband, and Akine should find someone else. That only sets Akine off again. She bursts into another fit of laughter, almost unable to stand straight. Meanwhile, Taiyou desperately tries to get Fuyuki's attention, telling her the truth. Akine already knows they're married. That only makes things more confusing. Still laughing, Akine casually reveals that she doesn't need to find another man. She lifts her hand and shows her wedding ring, explaining that she already has a husband, and he's a great one. Fuyuki freezes, completely stunned. She had no idea. Demanding answers, she asks when that even happened, but Akine calmly counters that Fuyuki never shared anything about her own marriage either. As the tension slowly fades, Fuyuki finally admits the truth. She thought Taiyou was cheating on her. Taiyou, confused, asks if she didn't see Akine's message about the dinner invitation for both couples. Fuyuki immediately denies it. She never received anything. Akine, with a straight face, admits something surprising. She figured Fuyuki would show up anyway, even without an invitation. That sparks another argument. Fuyuki gets angry, accusing her of playing games, while Akine casually points out that she went through the effort of cooking a full dinner for everyone. Fuyuki fires back, saying she's basically being forced to forgive her. But then, something else catches her attention. The apartment. It's elegant, expensive. Fuyuki looks around, surprised, and Akine casually reveals that her husband is a doctor. Now Fuyuki is even more curious. She demands the full story, but right at that moment, the front door opens. Akine simply smiles and says she'll leave the rest to their imagination. And just like that, the mystery continues. Soon after, Valentine's Day arrives. At the office, Fuyuki hands out chocolates to her female colleagues. The gifts are beautifully made, clearly high quality, earning plenty of admiration. Then, Tanaka shows up. Without any shame, he asks where his chocolate is. Fuyuki doesn't even look at him. She hands him a tiny, unimpressive piece, completely lacking the effort she put into the others. Then she turns away, casually stating that she's taking the rest of the day off. No further explanation. Later, Fuyuki heads back to Akine's house carrying a large amount of chocolate with her. She thanks Akine for letting her use the kitchen and asks how work is going. Fortunately, Akine is working from home and has already finished everything for the day. With that, the two decide to spend their time making Valentine sweets together. Fuyuki, knowing her own weaknesses, quickly looks up recipes online. While preparing, she casually asks if Akine's husband likes sweets. Akine, slightly shy, admits that he does, and that he eats a lot of chocolate. Fuyuki finds that amusing, though when Akine asks why, she simply brushes it off. They decide to make a chocolate cake. Fuyuki reads out the ingredients while Akine carefully measures everything. But as expected, things don't go smoothly. Fuyuki struggles. She forgets steps, mixes things up, and generally creates chaos in the kitchen. At one point, while moving around, she accidentally bumps into Akine. The impact is noticeable. The two pause for a second before Fuyuki suddenly starts laughing. When Akine questions her, she simply says the situation was funny. Trying to stay focused, Fuyuki moves on to melting the chocolate. To check the taste, she takes a small sample, but in a clumsy moment, some of it spills right onto her. She looks down at the mess, slightly annoyed but not overly concerned. Akine notices and asks what she's doing, only for Fuyuki to casually offer her a spoonful of chocolate. Akine hesitates, then accepts. Despite the chaos, they manage to finish the sweets and place them in the fridge to cool. With some time to spare, Akine offers Fuyuki a snack, but Fuyuki declines, saying she already has plenty of chocolate waiting at home. For now, though, the two continue spending time together, their unusual dynamics slowly growing more comfortable.
Night falls, and the clock quietly passes 8 p.m. Tojo Fuyuki glances at her phone and immediately realizes something is off. Haru Taiyou is late. The moment she hears the door open and his voice announcing he's home, she springs up instantly, rushing to greet him with excitement. With a bright smile, she tells him she made chocolates just for him. And then, it hits her. She left them at Hokuho Akine's house. The realization crushes her. Fuyuki drops to the floor in despair, completely defeated by her own mistake. But Taiyou, seeing her like that, gently reassures her that it's really not a big deal. Still, something feels off. Fuyuki looks at him more closely and notices his expression. Concern replaces her embarrassment as she asks if something is wrong. Taiyou admits it. He had a rough day. The higher-ups were in a terrible mood, and it made everything exhausting. Hearing that, Fuyuki softens. She quietly tells him that it must have been hard. And then, suddenly, she gets an idea. Without another word, she heads into the kitchen. After a bit of searching and preparation, she comes back with a small cup, apologizing for it being simple, but offering it to him anyway. Taiyou looks at it surprised. Hot chocolate? Fuyuki nods, explaining that since she forgot the chocolates, she wanted to at least give him something warm. She adds gently that maybe if he drinks it, his heart will warm up too. Taiyou takes a sip and smiles. She was right. The warmth spreads, easing his tension, and just like that, the two end their Valentine's Day quietly, wrapped in each other's arms on the couch, sharing a peaceful moment together. But later that night, Fuyuki lies alone in bed scrolling her phone, and then she makes a purchase. A love potion. A mischievous smile spreads across her face as her imagination starts running wild. She envisions Taiyou acting completely different, more bold, more intense, a version of him that won't hold back. In her thoughts, he leans over her, his voice deeper, promising she won't be getting any sleep that night. That's exactly what she wants. Determined, she prepares for the next opportunity. Not long after, she makes coffee for Taiyou, happily announcing that she got off work early, meaning they have the whole night to themselves. While he's not looking, she adds a few drops of the potion into his drink. Taiyou, unaware, thanks her with his usual innocent smile and starts drinking. Fuyuki watches closely, waiting. Moments pass, and then it starts. Taiyou mentions that he suddenly feels hot. Fuyuki, on the inside, celebrates. The potion is working. Thinking quickly, she suggests that maybe the living room is too warm and that the bedroom would be cooler. Taiyou agrees without suspicion. Soon he's lying on the bed, and then Fuyuki enters, dressed provocatively, her expression soft yet seductive. She sits beside him, quietly saying that she feels hot too. When she asks how she looks, Taiyou, flustered, honestly replies that she looks beautiful. Her plan is going perfectly. The mood is set, everything is falling into place. As they lie side by side, Fuyuki prepares herself for what's about to happen. But then, Taiyou speaks. He asks if he can be a little selfish. Fuyuki's heart races. This is it. She's ready, completely ready. Without hesitation, she tells him he can do anything he wants. Taiyou pulls her into a gentle hug and thanks her. For a second, she freezes. Then he says it. He just wants to sleep. He's exhausted. And just like that, everything collapses. Inside, Fuyuki screams in frustration, her entire plan completely backfiring as her overly romantic night ends in the most unexpected way possible. The next day, Tojo Fuyuki sits with her phone, leaving a review on the website where she bought the love potion. Her verdict? Unclear.
She writes that she's not sure if it actually worked as an aphrodisiac, but since her husband ended up falling asleep so peacefully, maybe it had some kind of effect after all. Even so, she doesn't look satisfied. Standing in front of a scale, Fuyuki checks her weight and immediately frowns. The number is higher than she expected. When she looks at herself in the mirror, she notices something else. Her face looks slightly swollen. That's enough. She reflects on her lifestyle. Too much sitting, bad posture, not enough movement. And just like that, she decides it's time for a change. A serious one. Which, of course, terrifies Taiyou. The next morning starts unusually early. At 5:30 a.m., Fuyuki wakes up before her husband. Quietly getting out of bed, she notices Taiyou still fast asleep and begins setting things up in the living room. She drags a small table aside, connects her phone to the TV, and pulls up a workout video. Dressed in athletic clothes, she gets started. Determined. Focused. She follows along with squats, stretches, and various poses. Some movements highlight her flexibility, while others quickly prove to be a challenge. When she attempts a bridge pose, her body trembles before she collapses onto the mat, completely exhausted. Breathing heavily, she stares at the ceiling. Yeah, maybe this isn't it. After a moment, she decides running might be easier. Out on the city streets, Fuyuki jogs at a steady pace. Her presence doesn't go unnoticed. People glance her way, some clearly impressed, but she remains completely focused on her goal. In her mind, she's already calculating results. At this rate, she'll lose weight in no time. Back at the apartment, Taiyou is peacefully cooking breakfast, unaware of her internal battle. He prepares something special, enjoying the quiet morning. Soon, the door opens. Fuyuki returns. Tired, but satisfied. She confirms she went for a run and mentions she'll just have something light, maybe a salad. But Taiyou shakes his head. Since it's the weekend, he made something special. He places the plate down. Pancakes. Warm, fluffy, topped with melted butter. Fuyuki freezes. They look incredible. Her mouth almost waters, but her mind immediately resists. If she eats that, all her effort from this morning will be wasted. She's ready to refuse. But then, Taiyou smiles. A soft, genuine smile. He tells her he noticed how hard she's been trying lately, so he wanted to make something she'd really enjoy. That's it. Her resolution shatters instantly. Fuyuki throws her arms around him, hugging him tightly as she declares her love. And in the end, she gives in, choosing happiness over strict discipline and enjoying every bite.